Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about Jonathan Grenard. We're also going to talk about Dallas Turner and some of these guys on this defensive line for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I know the new D-line's a little bit different with Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, but Grenard, I saw I think it was your beat writer for The Athletic, Alec Lewis, I want to say, and he was saying his hot take, they're all doing hot takes, his was Jonathan Grenard is going to be the defensive player of the year in the NFC. And I'm, sitting here and I'm like, what's so interesting is, first off, Brian Flores is still the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. This defense is insane. Last year, these guys were so good at applying pressure, and I think they're going to be even better. You're going up in this specific clip, and like I said, I'll make all this quick because we're talking about a bunch of different stuff in today's video. Tied for second in the NFL with 180 pressures, 69 knockdowns, tied for third, and then 49 sacks, which was top 5 in the NFL. You're going up in this clip against Taylor Decker, right here, number 68 for the Detroit Lions, and he just does this double bat move. Ball actually ends up coming out. Goff's able to come onto it, but Taylor Decker was the 14th ranked tackle in the NFL in pass blocking 2 years ago. Last year, he was 33rd. So a really good left tackle in the NFL, right? And he just, it almost looks too easy right there. But we'll keep it moving. So everybody in the National Football League, or at least the NFL media world, everyone's freaking out about the Minnesota Vikings quarterback situation with J.J. McCarthy, just because he's a young kid. The Vikings defense is the bread and butter here, all right? Sam Darnold had an insane, talented season. The interior offensive line kind of started to fail you guys towards the end of the year. Injury at left tackle right out of the gate. Here's week, I want to say 14 against the Chicago Bears, and Blake Cashman ends up picking this one up, and he's going to go just a little bit longer. The amount of talent, 12 sacks last season. I think he had 12 and a half the year before with Houston. We're looking at so many of these players on Minnesota's defense from last season. Blake Cashman, another good example, where it's like people weren't sure. Because Grenard really broke out in his last year against Houston. But these guys were applying, I just gave you the statistic. It's insane. They were applying, and the scheme was even crazier. And I like this against Caleb Williams. You're going to see in a bunch of these how good he is. And then we're going to even talk about Dallas Turner, because he's kind of that missing cog of that defensive line that could really get this to be genuinely the best defense in the NFL next season. Week 3, I love this clip so much. Now, you're going to see the tight end here attempt to block, or maybe it's going to be this guy right here. We'll let it play out. We'll figure it out. Green 18. Yep, right there. Is that Dalton Schultz? This is week 3, and we were really big on Minnesota 1 year ago before you guys had that amazing season, or I know the playoffs weren't ideal, but we won't even talk about that. The future is brighter in Minnesota. I'll just leave it at that. You can't put a tight end on Jonathan Grenard. And then you see on the other side of the football, Andrew Van Ginkel, who was another one of those new additions where people were like, I don't know. People didn't really care about the Vikings defense or their defensive line at this time 1 year ago, and they made them regret that immediately. Van Ginkel had 11 and a half sacks last season. They blitzed on a league-high 38.9% of dropbacks. And you can even just kind of tell with this scheme, right here, the guy we were just talking about. So we're looking at the D-line. Van Ginkel right here. It looks like they're about to bring, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. Maybe a linebacker's going to blitz. You're going to see Van Ginkel get out here in coverage. They end up bringing the linebacker. And the scheme it's a work of art. All right, guys, we keep it unbiased on this channel. We're looking at the left side of the screen here against my Green Bay Packers. And you're going to see our left tackle, number 63, Rasheed Walker. This is something that I guess technically does show up on the stat sheet because Grenard had the 3rd most pressures in the NFL last season. But this is an excellent job of just, we'll show it, we'll break it down, just using his pure strength, and then he pushes Rasheed into Jordan. So it's these small little things, and I just look at the depth chart of your defensive line, which, by the way, guys, hit that like button if you don't mind it. It goes an extremely long way. Love all my Vikings fans watching this. The whole starting lineup on this team: Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Jalen Redmond, Jonathan Grenard, Blake Cashman, Ivan Pace Jr., there we go, Andrew Van Ginkel, Isaiah Rodgers, who's a hidden gem, by the way, Metellus, Harrison Smith, Jeff Okudah, and Byron Murphy, who had 6 interceptions last season. But I do want to talk about now, moving forward, I want to talk about Dallas Turner, because I know some people, a first-round draft pick, I know some people weren't too pleased with how he performed in his rookie season, but I was watching some of this tape, and it got me very excited for his sophomore campaign. All right, we're looking over on our right side of the screen here. This is going to be a run from San Francisco. This unit was very good at stopping the run. They allowed the third fewest rushing yards. Can't talk. Oh, my goodness. I'm a little jacked up on coffee, so I'll let this play run through. It's a nice run stop from this whole defensive line. And they see Dallas Turner get on in there, but these guys do a really good job of holding the line of scrimmage, the interior offensive line, or the interior defensive line. All these guys are kind of, okay, we can't draw at all. All these guys are shifting to their left. They're running it to the left. And you're going to see Dallas maintain this right here, hold that block, and then just avoids them and comes on in here. And so does the rest of the Minnesota Vikings defense. But that stat was this unit allowed the third fewest rushing plays of 10 or more yards and the fourth fewest yards before contact per rush. And you see the latter evidently present right here. But let's get into some pass rush snaps for Dallas Turner. So once again, we're in Minnesota playing the San Francisco 49ers, or you guys are. People hate when I say that, but I think you know what I mean. Minnesota essentially only rushes 3 guys here. It's going to end up being... it's going to be right here, and then a little bit of Grenard at the end. But I want to pinpoint this because, as you guys know, this is Trent Williams. And Trent Williams is a very good left tackle, one of the best in the business, always has been. And they're, like I said, rushing too. Purdy does a good job of getting this football off, but he just pushes them, use a little speed, and then we get into some power. So this is stuff, once again, where, I see some criticism towards... keeping him level, and then just pretty much pushes him onto Brock's lap. This is stuff, like I said, that you see some criticism, and I fully get it, but it's a rookie. I know it's a first-round pick, so you're looking for some level of consistency, but I do think we saw plenty of flashes of Dallas last season. I love the name, by the way, and we'll finish it off with one more Dallas Turner clip. All right, guys, and let me know if you like this style of content. I absolutely love making it. You see Dallas kind of right here. Different angle. You're seeing Blake Cashman ultimately get through to the quarterback as well. But you're going up against Darnell Wright, a very good young right tackle for, former first-round pick for the Chicago Bears. And you see him, he's kind of falling on his legs, and this is where we see the strength. This is where we see that athleticism, right? Kind of loses his footing here. Darnell's trying to push him more right, and he just keeps getting home. And then, there we go. We got a little Blake Cashman going on. This defense is awfully fascinating to me, just like they were last year. And, like I said, they got 2 new additions on that defensive line, and Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. So I think they truly have, they should, especially based off of last season, one of the league's best defenses that's only getting better. And no matter how good, how consistent J.J. McCarthy looks early on with Minnesota next season, this defense is a freak and force of nature. Brian Flores is one of, if not the best, defensive schemers in the National Football League. So, folks, thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. We haven't made a Vikings video in way too long, but we got the season starting here, so don't worry about that. And give me maybe a loose win-loss projection for Minnesota down below. Peace.